Hello, True Health Seeker, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Learn True Health podcast. You're going to love today's interview with Kathleen Gage. She's giving away her program for you for free with a bunch of free goodies as well that she's put together. You can get everything that she's giving us, the Learn True Health listeners, by going to learntruehealth.com/powerup. That's learntruehealth.com/powerup. I also want to make sure that you know about the Learn True Health Home Kitchen. If you're looking to increase the amounts of fruits and vegetables, nuts, seeds, legumes, beans, and whole healthy greens in your diet, basically if you want to increase the amount of nutrient density in your diet to stave off infection and disease and support your body's ability to heal itself and maintain optimal health, then join the Learn True Health Home Kitchen. Just go to learntruehealth.com/home kitchen and check it out, and be sure to use the coupon code LTH for the listener discount. So go to these two links today. One is learntruehealth.com/powerup for the free goodies that Kathleen Gage is giving you, and go to learntruehealth.com/home kitchen to get the free tour and check out the membership site that I created for you with all these wonderful recipes and healing information, so you can walk into the kitchen and use your kitchen to support your body's ability to heal itself. Delicious recipes that support you and your family in optimal health. learntruehealth.com/home kitchen. I hope to see you there. Enjoy today's interview. Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 428. I am so excited for today's guest. We have a really special guest on. Kathleen Gage has been an inspiration to me for several years. Kathleen, I met you back in, I want to say 2012 or 2013, back in Portland.
Yeah, it was quite a few years ago. I remember it well. It was at the, what was the old historic hotel? Drawing a blank on the name of it, but down in a lower room. And I remember it.
Yeah, it was really beautiful. Kathleen was leading a weekend workshop for entrepreneurs that was like a personal growth and mindset workshop. Something you've done for many years, and my husband and I really enjoyed it. We enjoyed connecting with all the wonderful people in your class and learning from you. And then afterwards, we became Facebook friends, and I followed your journey. And your life has gone in a similar direction as mine has. So it was really interesting to see what has transpired, and I'm really excited for you to share your story today. Now, you have two platforms that are kind of merging together. You teach people how to make their own podcast, how to, so entrepreneurs, but also holistic health professionals, health coaches. So you teach how to make a podcast that and how to market your podcast and how to grow it so that you can get more clients, and you can educate and help. You can really help people, because I know that your entire mission is about helping people. And then you have this other platform based on what's happened in your life the last few years that has led you to become a health coach of sorts. So I'm going to step back, and I really would love you to paint the picture of your life, because you have this amazing life story. And it really does help us understand the work that you do and how you can help us now.
Well, thank you. And it's so interesting, the journey that my life and my business has taken, because I've had my business 26 years, and I started out as a corporate trainer, and I was working with a lot of government agencies. And through the process of just my own personal growth and the evolution of business, and now where we're at with the whole COVID-19 situation, what I really focus on is helping experts who have a big mission. They want to get their message out to market, to either start a podcast show and use that as a platform to get their message out, or to get on a lot of podcast shows and, really saturate the market with their message in the most appropriate way. On the flip side, I actually discovered plant-based eating. I'm coming up on about 20 months of being a plant-based eater. And initially I started because I'm going to be 66 very shortly. And like a lot of women my age, I was getting inflammation. So I was looking for a solution, and everything led me back to plant-based eating. And what's really amazing is within a couple of days of deciding to go plant-based, this was back in September of 2018, the inflammation was gone. The first week I dropped 5 pounds, and I wasn't doing it as a diet, but I thought, hey, I'll take it. And within about 3 months, I dropped 38 pounds. I had more energy than I'd had in a long time. And the most important thing, which I love, Ashley, is that it was so aligned with my love of animals. And amazingly, I've worked in the pet industry for years, and that came about as a result of doing a lot of animal rescue. And I did a fundraiser for one of our rescues, and somebody from the pet industry saw me, asked me if I'd come and speak at a conference. One thing led to another, and at one point, about 50% of my business was in the pet industry. And one day, before I actually went plant-based, I remember feeling like there was a disconnect between rescuing animals and loving animals so much and talking about the well-being of animals and eating animals. And when I went plant-based, it was that big aha of like, that's what the disconnect was, is that I was so out of alignment with what I said was true, but I wasn't walking the talk. So now where my life is that I do have two primary, what I call buckets in my life and my business. One is working with experts, really helping them to gain the visibility to get their message out to market, and also living a very plant-based life. I've got a Facebook group, I've got a podcast, I've got a blog, and I'm so passionate about getting the message out about plant-based eating, what it does for your health, what it does for animals, and what it does for the planet.
I'm in your Facebook group. I love your Facebook group. I love the
Thank you.
resources. You every day you're posting articles and book recommendations, and you've asked me a few times to share some episodes, like my interviews with Dr. Joel Furman and Dr. Neil Barnard. Uh, I've got a few really good ones that where these doctors are reversing disease using diet. And I love those interviews. I love interviewing doctors who um, have the clinical experience of completely reversing diabetes, and this is type 2 diabetes, obviously, but you can
Right.
significantly improve type 1 diabetes with plant-based eating and when I say plant-based, I mean a whole foods plant-based, no processed foods, no oil, for example. We have seen under the care of these doctors, type 1 diabetics significantly reduce their insulin usage healthfully, even though they're eating more carbohydrates. And it blows their minds because they're actually eating more carbs. Of course, they're completely different carbs, so they shouldn't even be called
Exactly.
carbs. Like a banana and a donut shouldn't be both called carbs. It's just like two totally different things to the body. And so type 1 diabetics are significantly improving their health and lowering their medical expenses. Type 2 diabetics are 100% reversing type 2 diabetes. Heart disease patients who have actual like blockages in the heart are reversing blockages in the heart, are getting off of medications, getting so healthy that they're getting off of medications. And the list goes on and on. A dear friend of mine, Naomi, Naomi went plant-based last summer. I remember the day she came from her appointment where she was told she had heart disease. And she had had angina. She goes for daily walks, but she was winded and walking slowly, and she could never keep up with her 3 kids. And she was getting chest pain, tachycardia, and heart skipping. Like her heart was skipping and also beating
Mm.
fast. In the middle of the night, she'd wake up with her heart skipping and beating fast, and it was scaring her. And she thought it was her hormones. She thought it was the EBV that she's been fighting for years. And it turned out it was actually heart disease. So she came over to our house and she thought, how am I going to get my family to eat whole food plant based? She came straight to our house from that appointment, and I had just made fresh rolls. And so she like these big, wraps with like, these leafy greens wrapped
Hmm.
with a bunch of vegetables inside. And I made a homemade like peanut sauce, kind of dipping sauce. And she loved it. And she said, man, I could make this for my family. And so she proceeded to go home and start her plant based journey that day. And then her family got on board. Her three kids got on board. She's not strict with them. If they go out, they're gonna eat meat outside the house, but there's no meat in the house, and they're actually really happy. They love the food she cooks. But then she got her parents to go plant-based. Her dad, who had heart surgery, both her parents have arthritis. They're maybe a little bit older than you. And her mom, within weeks of going whole food plant-based, her arthritis was 100% gone. Her pain was 100% gone. Like, she couldn't believe it. Not only is she losing some excess weight she had problems with, but all of her inflammation, all of her joint stiffness and pain went away within weeks. And this is the thing I'm hearing over and over again. So it's so exciting. So you started eating whole food plant-based and you started noticing these changes in your body. Then what happened?
Dramatic changes. Well, a great example is this morning I went on a 2.5 mile run, and that's a low run. That's a small run for me. And it hit me as I was getting ready today. I thought, wow, here I am. I'm going to be 66 years old. I remember growing up when you looked at somebody in their 60s, they were old. And I look at a lot of women my age, and they're really old because they have bought into the belief that there's really not much they can do. But when you change the way you eat, when you change what you put into your body and you get rid of the inflammation producing foods, a lot can change. But for me, it's like I have much more energy. I have incredible focus. It's so amazing right now with all that's going on and so much stress in the world, and that people are really getting sucked into this just downward mindset. That for me, I am so. I'm not stressed. It's like I'm not feeling the stress that a lot of people are feeling. And I actually felt guilty a few days ago. I was like, what's wrong with me? Why am I not feeling what everybody else is feeling? And it's like, well, I'm not eating like what everybody else is eating. Now, there was a period in my life when I was caretaking my mom, and she passed away in 2011. And as I was her caretaker, I was consuming so much sugar and processed food, and I was at my heaviest weight. I was 212 pounds at that point. And I had no energy. I was depressed a lot. I was sad a lot. And of course, when you're losing your mom, you're probably going to be sad. But I've often thought, I wonder what my life would have been like and how I would have been able to respond even more than I already did had I not been eating the way I had been eating. So for me, it's kind of like I feel like I've discovered the fountain of youth. And I recently interviewed a gentleman that I follow all the doctors like Dr. Furman, Dr. Campbell, Dr. Greger. I follow all of them, and I really love their work. And I also love talking to people that have had these reversals, like your friend. I like talking to the individuals who have had life-changing experiences. And I interviewed a gentleman the other day. Brian Rogers is his name. He was 300 pounds, had 6 major diseases, had liver disease, he had heart disease, he was borderline diabetes. It was just phenomenal what was going on in his life and his health. And he was going to get bariatric surgery. And they decided to wait a little while because of insurance reasons. Well, he really looked at it and he said, okay, I need to make some dramatic changes. That was 140 pounds ago. That was 6 diseases ago. He's reversed every single disease. And when people say that there's nothing they can do about their health, they need to really look at, is that true? Or is it that you haven't explored one more option? Because the one more option, they have just so much amazing information on what plant-based eating can do for people. And for me, as I get older, I keep getting healthier and healthier and healthier. The last time I went for my physical, my doctor, she was like, just keep doing this. She goes, your numbers are amazing. These are some of the best numbers I've ever seen. They're getting better and better every time I see you. And the first time I saw her when I went plant-based, it was about 3 months into it. And she was just like, this is incredible. Because at one point she said, you better lose some weight. You better do something with your health because you're ready to have a heart attack and you're ready to have a stroke. And she goes, you're not a kid anymore, and you need to realize you're putting your life at risk. And she was going to put me on some medication. I said, well, let me lose some weight. And of course, I did what most people do. I went on a crash diet, lost some weight, but then I gained it all back and some. And for the first time in my life, I don't diet. I don't count calories and I eat a lot. But like you said, it's the difference in the type of carbohydrates that we eat. And unfortunately, carbs have gotten a really bad rap because it's not the carbs themselves, it's the type of carbs, the sugar, the donuts, the cookies, all of the bad foods. So I would encourage people that if you're feeling like you're not living up to your full potential, give it a shot for a week. Try 100% plant-based. And what that really means is as close to nature as possible. And a lot of people assume, Ashley, that it means that you're only going to eat salads. And there's so many choices. Oh my gosh. Actually, for breakfast, this is really bizarre. For breakfast, we've been taught that we need bacon and eggs and pancakes and toast and all this stuff. For breakfast today, what I had was actually split pea soup. It's homemade split pea soup with leeks in it, with onions in it, with carrots in it. And I made it from scratch. And it was like, oh, that was so good. And the energy it gives me is unflippin' believable.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Yeah, we have to question our belief system around food, like the belief that we need cereal or whatever, right? We need a certain breakfast, we need a certain lunch. And just know that there's this whole world of what we don't know out there. I love
Right.
that lesson I learned from Landmark Education way back when I was a teenager. I took the Landmark Forum, which is a personal growth and development course. And they say the world is made up of, there's three things. The world is the things you know. So like you know how to drive, right? That's a small percentage of the world, right? Is the things that let's say it's 5%. You know how to set the timer on your phone, like the things you know. And then there's the things you don't know. And you know that you don't know how to operate a rocket ship, right? You don't know how to fly on a trapeze. The things you don't know. And that's maybe a bit larger. Maybe it's 25%. But then the majority of the circle is actually comprised of things you don't know. And we kind of live life like the only things that exist are things we know, and things we don't know. And we tend to negate this whole other world, which is the majority of existence out there is stuff we don't know. And when all of a sudden we learn something we didn't know, it'll hit us really hard. And either we accept it and we go, wow, this is new information. I didn't even know this was possible. Like I didn't know I could heal my body with food 100% and not with
Right.
drugs. And we accept it, or we reject it because it doesn't match our belief system of, well, this doesn't fit into the box of the things I knew I didn't know. And so I'm going to reject it. And we have to be careful that we keep our minds, we need to make sure we keep our minds open enough, which I think my listeners do. That's why they're here listening. They're listening for what they don't know, and the aha moments that come from that. And so you were having those revelations, right? Because like you said, you didn't diet. But as you switched over to plant-based eating, can you share some of the aha moments as you were learning from these doctors?
Absolutely. Well, and it's also interesting about what we think we know that we know, and it's based on hearsay, it's based on propaganda, it's based on media, it's
Mm.
based on marketing dollars, and like the whole thing of most people think they know that they need to have animal protein, and that is the furthest thing from the truth. And when the first thing I often get from people when I say that I'm plant-based is, well, where do you get your protein? And I know that you've heard that too. It's like, well, you get your protein from beans, legumes, from greens. And I mean, plant-based food has as much, if not more, protein than animal-based, but it doesn't have all the garbage that goes with it. So I think for people to look at, what do you think that that maybe you don't know that you don't know? It's like kind of a tongue twister on that one. Like with factory farming, for example, a lot of
Mm.
people, I had a woman the other day who got really upset because I posted something about the factory farms that are being shut down. And I said, yay, I'm so glad that's happening. And she got really defensive. And apparently her family has a family farm. And I said the two are night and day. I said the way that family farms are run compared to factory farms are night and day. So don't take it so personally,
Mm-hmm.
because personally, I'm very glad that the factory farms are shutting down. And I would like to see more sustainable food being grown so that it's healthier. Because you look at our health system, and what has happened with COVID-19 was really the straw that broke the camel's back. The system was broken. And for it to fall apart that quickly with this crisis indicates that something we were doing is really wrong. And so we need to get into the foundation and fix the foundation. But as far as the things that I've learned, one, I've really learned a lot about nutrition, so much in fact that I decided to get my certificate of completion from Cornell University. I got that on March 2nd is when I graduated from that course. And it was pretty phenomenal to just learn where the studies come from. For example, when you read a study, and maybe it says, this study says that milk is good for bones. It makes strong bones. Well, 9 times out of 10, that study is going to be funded by the milk industry and the dairy industry. So when you're reading a study, you want to look at who funded the study. That's one thing that I've learned in the time that I've been plant-based. Another thing that I've learned is I really love cooking. I never liked to cook. And that comes from a previous marriage. When I was 19, I got married to my high school sweetheart, and he was very demanding with the way that I cooked. Like I was working all day, I would come home and he wanted me to cook. And I ended up hating cooking because nothing I did was good enough. I mean, it turned out to be a pretty bad marriage, and we were married for 3 years, got divorced, and it was a rather abusive relationship. So I actually formed a belief that I was a bad cook. I formed a belief that I hated cooking. And until I went plant-based and I started experimenting, because nobody was going to cook for me unless I cooked when it came to plant-based. And it was kind of like the thing with your friend where she started and then pretty soon her kids got into it and her parents got into it. What I'm finding is I have friends and family now that are going plant-based as a result of me cooking for them. And they're like, wow, this is really good. And it's like, really? Are you just telling me that? Or is it really good? And I'm like, I think it's good. But my mother-in-law, I love cooking for her because she's in her mid-80s. She's kind of at high risk with the whole situation going on. She has cystic fibrosis of the lungs. And so we really have to be careful with her health and make sure that she eats really healthy. She'll come over and she goes, what kind of soup did you make today? And it's like, oh my gosh, I have somebody who loves my cooking. So of course, applaud me and I'll cook more, But I've learned that I really enjoy cooking. I've learned a lot about nutrition. I've learned to balance my meals. I've learned that there were certain foods that I thought that I couldn't do without, that I absolutely don't like anymore. I was so addicted to donuts and candy and cookies. When I would eat, I would go, when I was eating sugar, I would go and buy a box of donuts, the 6 in a box of donuts. And if anybody ate one of my donuts, I got so upset that I would go and get another box and I would eat that box too. In one sitting, I would eat a box of donuts. Well, now the thought of eating donuts it does not appeal to me at all. So what I learned is my taste buds changed. And that's what a lot of people fear, is that they're going to miss certain foods. Well, you find out that your body adjusts to that and your body craves the really healthy foods.
Yes, it's so true. It's so true. I used to be a chocoholic. I used to totally be addicted to chocolate. I used to totally be addicted to sugar. And a few years ago, my husband and I did the 30-day sugar detox challenge. You know what I mean? Just like cut
Mm-hmm.
out all sugar.
Mm-hmm.
And to the point where like I got so strict, I would read I'm a really label reader. I read labels. I call myself a food detective. I think we should all be food detectives. If you're going to buy something with ingredients on the package, read the ingredients, know what you're eating. And
Right.
I love hot sauce, and that's something that I didn't ever love until I met my husband, and he started ramping up the heat in our in our meals, and now I just absolutely love hot sauce. So I was looking for a hot sauce, and I was hard pressed to find a hot sauce that didn't contain sugar, and I thought that's really interesting how much sugar is hidden in all of our foods. So I'd get, I don't know, gluten. We've been gluten free since 2011, but I would get like a gluten free bread, sugars in it. What? I'd get gluten free waffles, sugars in it. What? I'm just looking for plain. Oh, now, and I don't eat cereal, but I've been like seeing. I've been looking because we have a 5-year-old. I'm looking. Is there a healthy cereal out there that he can eat? There's not one cereal that I can find that doesn't have sugar in it that he like. That's just like all natural ingredients. Like it's very hard to find. I did find something that was like made of lentils, like just these little O's that are made of lentils. Almost no grocery store carries them. Every single oh, and you think I thought to myself, I thought that Rice Krispies didn't have sugar in them. When I was growing up, they didn't. Now they have sugar in them, and so it was just for me. There's sugar in everything. I couldn't believe it. So we did 30 days with no sugar, and I became so aware. And when I say no sugar, I mean no processed sugar, no cane sugar, no
Right,
beet
right.
sugar, no maple syrup, no agave, just no processed sugar. I could still eat a banana, like a natural, something natural I would have, but for 30 days no sugar, my taste buds changed. And now, like I have this like 100% dark chocolate from Trader Joe's sitting in the cupboard, and it's been sitting there for weeks. And I'll if I feel like I want some chocolate, I'll take a bar, like a little square, and I'll eat it with like half a date or something, or a whole date. I don't even need a whole date because it sweetens it, right? And then I'm fine. I'm like, oh, I'm fine. And I look at it. It's been sitting there. It's slowly getting whittled away, like one tiny square a week or something. And I'm thinking to myself, like, in the past, I would have, first of all, I wouldn't have bought the 100% dark chocolate because wasn't sweet. But in the past, I would have eaten 3 bars. You know what I mean? Because I was a
Right.
chocoholic.
Absolutely.
And now I actually, when I open the cupboard and I see it there, this half-eaten bar wrapped in its, still in its wrapping, I'm like, I don't even want it. I don't want it. I'm looking at it. It doesn't thrill me. It doesn't. Whereas before it was like chocolate controlled me, and now it just has no
Absolutely.
thrill. But the food I'm cooking is amazing. I have friends that when we go over to their house. Obviously not right now, with all being quarantined. But when we go over to their house, I always bring food because they're like, we don't know what to make you guys. I'm like, great, don't worry about it. I'll make you food. And they had the question. They're like, where do you get your protein from? I said plants. And they're just like, what? They like everyone, they think that there's no protein in plants. And I said, well, plants, any plant, just eat a plant, you're getting protein. It's a misconception that protein isn't in plants. And I make the most delicious food, soups, stews.
Right.
Yes, I did a salad last time I went there, but it was I sprouted lentils, which is the easiest thing to do, and you look like a wizard in the kitchen. I sprouted lentils. I made a sprouted lentil soup. It's so easy. You actually can get kids to do it. It's so easy to make sprouts in your kitchen. Um, they're really hard to mess up. And just the food is so delicious. There's so much more flavor in this food. And of course, it's also very healing. So, tell me a bit about the nutrition course. You took a plant-based nutrition course from Cornell University. Tell us about your experience going through that certification.
Well, what I realized is that I actually knew a lot more than I thought I knew, because
Mm.
much of it was stuff I had already researched. Because I'm a researcher, I love reading books, I love watching videos. I immerse myself in a topic. And for example, I've been sober for 36 years. When I was out drinking, I drank until I blacked out. I mean, that's just the kind of drinker I was. When it was time to stop, and it wasn't that I one day said, "Oh, I think I'll stop." It was like my life fell apart. I was out on
Wow.
the streets. I was broke, I was broken, the whole 9 yards. And I had to build my life from that point. That was 36 years ago. So I'm very black and white in a lot of ways. So once I decided to really immerse myself in this, I studied everything I could get my hands on. You name a book, I probably read it. And I mean, we're talking everything from the China study, Eat to Live, sugar, salt, fat. That book is really great for anybody who wants to find out about the hidden sugar and why we're so addicted to it. So when I took the course, I was actually pleasantly surprised at how much I did know. The one thing that I really discovered were the reports and really looking at studies that are done. That part was fascinating to me. And one of the tasks that we had to write articles, which I'm a writer, so that was really easy for me. As I watched people struggling with that, I was like, well, this is so interesting. It's something that now is a part of my life. So we learned about nutrition, we learned about studies, we learned about different resources available, and this could be a springboard to other things we're doing. For me, as I mentioned, I'm very black and white. So when I started, I wrote an ebook. Within 3 months of going plant-based, I wrote The Beginner's Guide to Plant-Based Eating. I didn't know there was another book by that name, but it was my journey of how I made the decision, what happened in the first 3 months, and then here's some healthy foods that you can eat. That book is available on my website. Then I started the Facebook group. Then I started the blog, and then I started the podcast. One of my goals when the whole situation is minimized and we can get out there and do speaking engagements again. I want to speak at conferences, not necessarily plant-based conferences, but conferences where it's about health and wellness. It's about mindset. It's about taking control of your life. And when you were talking about the whole thing with sugar, a lot of people confuse the topic of sugar just like carbohydrates. Real natural sugar is good for us, like fruits, the fruits that we have. Before we started this call, I actually made myself a drink. It's a blended drink of fresh pineapple, fresh banana, and fresh orange. And I put some water in there and I blend it up, and it's a beautiful drink. It gives me so much energy. And I can't believe that I actually just said it's a beautiful drink. I mean, I look at food now and it's like, it's so beautiful. And, I just get excited about food. But I would recommend that people really look at the books available that can change your life. One is Eat to Live by Dr. Joel Fuhrman. Fast Food Genocide. Oh my gosh, that book is unbelievable. Sugar, salt, fat. You look at the controls that manufacturers have over people's lives. It's scary when you pull back the cover and you really start digging deep. It's no wonder that we have become such a sick society, and physically sick, emotionally sick, spiritually sick. It's because we have these chemicals that are going into our body and we're not even aware of it. When I started doing my research and I realized, like you said, reading the labels, how much sugar is in processed food, it's scary. And that's how our kids are being raised. And it's so wonderful to hear that you're raising your now it's a son or a daughter?
Yeah, son.
A son.
I know it's confusing because he has long hair. So does my husband. We're just a bunch of hippies. We're hairy hippies.
Hey, hippies are good. Hippies are good. I was actually thinking, this whole process that we're all going through right now, what a great opportunity to, I was talking with Karen earlier. Karen's my wife, and we've been together 30 years. And she does weight training, and she found some old equipment that she's actually cleaning up and refurbishing. And she goes, we've become such a throwaway society. She goes, people just get things and they throw it away. And it's so true. We have become such a disposable, throwaway society. And I think what's happening here is people are either resisting it 100% and they're not looking at the blessing of what's going on right now. And then there are other people that are looking at it and saying, what's the lesson I can learn here? And what can I do differently in my life? And for example, I became aware of how mindless I was about hopping in the car and running to the store, hopping in the car, running to the post office, instead of planning my trips out more consciously. And I think this whole situation with COVID-19 is giving us the opportunity to step back, and we've been asked to stay in our homes. Well, it's the internal home that we get to go into. We get to dig deep and really look at what's truly important in life. And it's interesting to hear how some people are really having struggles in their relationship because they're spending so much time with their spouse. And Karen and I have been talking about what a blessing it is that we get to one more thing we get to go through together. That's a difficult thing on some levels, but on other levels, it's such a blessing. And I think that what I've noticed is that there are people that are becoming very conscious about the choices that they're making and the actions that they take. And if anything, I hope that's the lesson people take away from this experience.
You mentioned the word distractions, or you were talking about people who are you painted this picture for me. I don't know if you said the word distractions exactly, but you painted the picture of the people who are either embracing this and learning from it, or the people who are up, stressed out and upset and maybe distracting themselves. One of my favorite comedians is Zach Anner. I don't know if you've heard of him. He has
No.
cerebral palsy. So cerebral palsy
Oh,
leaves him,
yes, yes, yes.
and he is hilarious. He makes fun of himself. He makes fun of everything, and he's very intelligent. Very intelligent humor. But I laugh so hard I can barely contain myself. So I love Zach Anner, but not only as a comedian, he wants to bring awareness to special needs and those with disabilities, and also make people feel more comfortable. So that we can have more connection and less distancing. So one of his videos, he recently made, for Cerebral Palsy Awareness Month, which I think was February. It's a very recent video he just made this year, and he said, he shares the lessons he's learned in the last 30 or 40 years of his life having cerebral palsy. And it's not he in this particular video, it's not a like a slapstick comedy like most of his videos. It's actually very heartfelt. But one thing he said really hit me. He said, passions over distractions. He goes, distractions, like let's say video games, for example, or distraction could be alcohol, right? What are you
Mm-hmm.
using to distract yourself versus your passions? Now, if someone's passionate about their gaming community and playing a video game with their friends, and it's not hurting their life to do it, and it's enriching them, that's fine. But is it a distraction? Are you using it? Are you using something? And it could be food, it could be alcohol, it could be TV. Are you using something to distract yourself, or are you following your passions? And he says distractions will destroy your life, but following your passions will enrich your life. And I think right now there are people who are following their passions in this time of
Right.
restriction, and I think there are people who are diving into distractions, and they're gonna come out of this, not as enriched, obviously, as the people who are following their passions.
That is so spot on. My sister is a fine artist, and she's also a very social person. She spends a lot of time with friends and out at galleries, and her artwork is all over the Bay Area. She's done very well as an artist. And I asked her recently, I said, how are you doing with all this? She goes, I'm loving it. She goes, this is giving me an opportunity to really dig deep into my art and express myself in a whole new way. She goes, I go to my gallery or my studio and I work for hours on end. I get lost in the process of creating art. She goes, I don't miss it at all. She goes, now when we're able to go out again, she goes, I definitely will do it. She goes, but right now I'm seeing this as a very spiritual process that I'm going through. And I absolutely love that, because you're right about the distractions or the passions. And for me, I've been doing a lot more writing. And I see this, as you were sharing that, I see in business people do that a lot, where they get involved in the distraction of running their business, and they get involved in the minutia of running the business and the little detail things that they could actually outsource. And for a few bucks, they could get it done. But rather than paying, $20, $30 to have somebody who can get it done right away, they spend hours and hours and hours trying to figure it out themselves. It's like, okay, and then they get frustrated. It's like, if you're getting that frustrated, why don't you invest in bringing somebody on who can help you to free up your time? And with passions, I love that, because as I've been writing, like some of the articles I've written are maybe 1,500 to 2,000 words, and I literally just do a download. It's like I'm not really thinking about what I'm putting on the computer screen. I'm just sitting there typing, and I'm channeling some thoughts, and then I go through and I clean it up and I do the research on it. But initially, I'll get an idea based on something somebody said, like with the factory farming's closing down. And people were getting really frustrated. Where's our food chain gonna, where's the food gonna come, and the chain's gonna stop and the supply's gonna end? It's like, no, this is wonderful. And I've actually been writing a lot of the big show hosts, like oh, I'm trying to think of the woman that I wrote today, and it was on Good Morning America. They had somebody that was doing a plant-based recipe, and I sent her my blog post, and I'm reaching out to people, and I'm just sending my information. I have no idea where it's going to land. It may land somewhere, it may not, but it's something that I'm so committed to that I want to get the word out about the fact that just because the factory farms are closing down doesn't mean that's a bad thing. It actually means it could be a good thing. And let's look at the other options for food. Now, granted, a lot of people are losing jobs, but if they could make the transition and have more sustainable food, these people could work in a different environment and a healthier environment.
Mm. As you were going through the Cornell certification, what things did you learn that you were really surprised to learn?
Again, I think it was more about where the studies are funded from. That was the most
That was the
shocking part
biggest
to me.
one?
Yeah, because we actually there was a module where you had to dig deep and you had to bring proof to the table. You couldn't just say, oh, I read a report and it was from such and such. You actually had to spend quite a bit of time documenting exactly where the information came from. And basically, you were a researcher and you were a detective to figure out, okay, who really funded that study that says that milk is good for a body, or who funded the study that said you need animal protein, or who funded the study saying bacon's not bad for you. It's like, oh, it was the pork industry. What a concept. And so for me, that
Yeah.
was the biggest aha that I had, is pulling back the covers and really looking at who's behind. Okay, for example, somebody sent me a video recently of a congressman who was talking about the food supply drying up because the factory farms are closing. And I mean, he made a good argument. It was a really good argument. So I simply went on Google, did a little research, and I found out, oh, he's funded by the pork industry. Isn't that interesting? So here he's a voice for the pork industry, and it's the pork industry who has funded him.
Wow.
Yeah. It was, and it didn't take long to figure that out because I learned it through the Cornell University course. Had I not learned that, I probably would have taken what he was saying at face value. And so, of course, I did a blog post around don't take everything at face value.
Mm. So one of my favorite books on all nutrition, just like my top, probably my favorite nutrition book of all time is Proteinaholic by Dr. Garth
Hmm.
Davis.
Hmm.
I mean, I love all the books you've mentioned. They're all really great. Proteinaholic was like the cherry on top of the everything. It was the everything for me. He sums it up so well. And I think it's chapter 9. It's sort of up there in the later chapters of the book where he goes through studies and he goes through who funded the studies and he completely tears it apart. He talks about all the studies that are grouped together that talk about like how much we need dairy for our bones and all the studies that the dairy industry paid for and all the information. So they do these studies where they do 100 different ones, for example, and they do these small groups of people, and then the ones where there's the ones when the people don't have good outcomes, they throw it out and they only keep the ones that have good outcomes. So they're cherry picking the the studies and they keep repeating it until they can sort of smudge the numbers to say that it actually is helpful.
Right.
Um, but then he goes through the science of showing, and I know that Dr. Neil Bernard really paints this very well in his book about cheese. That when we consume dairy, we actually are depleting the mineral supply from our bones, and communities, countries that consume more dairy have more osteoporosis. Cultures that consume no dairy or very little dairy have very low rates of osteoporosis. So we can look at those big numbers and see that there is a correlation there, but that dairy itself is not a great delivery system for minerals. And one of my favorite naturopaths who's mentored me, Dr. Joel Wallach, he says, cows can't make minerals. Like, let's get this straight. Dairy, you think you're getting your minerals from a cow. Cows don't make minerals. Cows are actually fed supplements. They're fed a feed with
Right.
calcium in it. He says, skip the middleman, take the supplements. Like, I know we're all imagining cows are sitting out in a pasture grazing on grass, but let's be honest, if you're drinking milk, it's coming from cows that have never seen grass in their life. They're in a building their entire life since birth in a very small compound, and they're being fed a feed with supplements and antibiotics, and other stuff that's not very great. But that they're then making a milk with some of those nutrients in it. And you could just skip the middleman and take a supplement, or you could eat, if a cow actually was allowed to go out and graze, they get the minerals from the plants. So, and we'd be skipping all the hormones and all the immune compromising compounds of milk. But we've been marketed to since birth that milk is really good for us. So we have to, again, see the marketing and realize that the industries that have to invest in marketing and lobbyists are not out for our health. There's no lobbyists for kale. There's no lobbyists to eat an
Right.
apple
Right.
and eat a banana and eat some spinach. Like, it's just there's no marketing in that. So you have to really go, well, if there's an industry that will pay for studies, that will pay for lobbyists and pay for marketing, why do they have to convince us to keep eating their food? And it's the egg industry is not allowed to, they're illegally not allowed to say eggs are healthy legally. I thought that was very interesting. And so they have flashy commercials, like with Kevin Bacon.
Right.
Have you seen those commercials where Kevin Bacon is like lying on the counter in the kitchen, complimenting the wife for having made eggs with
Oh
with Kevin
no.
Bacon, make eggs with Kevin
I have
Bacon.
not seen that one. I have
And
not seen that one.
right, so they make these fun, commercials, and but it's not they're not actually out for our best interests in
Well,
terms of our health.
and I've thought of like the very famous people who are part of the whole marketing process, and should they decide to go plant-based, what would that look like? And because they would be giving up some funding and a level of income that gives them a pretty good lifestyle,
Mm.
but also they're contributing to the ill health of a lot of people, because the reality is the majority of people in the world are lactose intolerant. So the very thing that they're saying does a body good really doesn't do a body good. And African Americans are much more susceptible to that. The antibiotic issue, they actually have done studies where they've drawn blood from people that eat meat, but they haven't taken any antibiotics for quite a while, and they find the antibiotics in their body. So what people don't realize, unless they do the research, unless they get the real information, is when they eat meat, they're getting not only a lot of drugs, they're getting the antibiotics, they're getting the toxins, they're getting the cholesterol, they're getting all the bad things, and very little good. There's really not much good in the meat that's processed in factory farms. And I had a discussion with a friend of mine not too long ago who's very integrated into the animal industry. And she was saying, oh, Kathleen, you're just making a big deal out of it. Animals, I grew up on a farm and we raised our animals with a lot of compassion. They only have one bad day. And I'm thinking, that is the worst argument, one bad day. It's like, oh, slit their throat and it's a bad day. It's like, no, the life on a factory farm is a lifetime of pain, of suffering. And if you follow the whole premise of energy, and that we take in a lot of energy from everything that we do, there's a thing called earthing, where you take your socks and shoes off and you put your feet on the earth, and it balances your electrical energy. But when you put animal products into your body that have been raised in factory farms, energetically, you're taking in pain, suffering, anger, fear. And it's no wonder that people are so neurotic, because energetically they've taken that into their body, and it's a constant. It's not like
Mm.
it's once or twice, but so when you really dig even deeper beyond the surface level of health, but you go into the emotional and spiritual health, that what I always invite people to do is, okay, before you eat that piece of meat, sit and meditate on where that meat came from. Take it back the whole process to when the cow was impregnated. Then they had the baby. Then the baby was taken away. Then the cow lived a life of misery, caged up. Then they had their throat slit. Then they were cut up. Then they were, went through the whole process and it was put on your plate. If you can still eat it, then God bless you.
Well, we're taught that it's healthy, and think about it. Our grandmother, our mom cooked us this meat and gave it to us and told us to eat our meat. Even it's in a rock song. Don't get your pudding unless you eat your meat. And it's something that we, from a very young age, have been taught is good for us, right? And some people
Right.
say, I feel good when I eat this way. Like I've been on over 30 diets in my life, well over, probably over 40 diets at this point. I'd read a book. It sounds, this doctor makes a lot of sense. Okay, I'm going to do this diet. And I remember at times when I really felt like meat made me feel good. And of course, I was incredibly unhealthy, and I was trying to find my health, and it was simply because I wasn't eating crap food.
Right.
So like for a short period of time, I felt good on Atkins. Not long. It was after 3 months on Atkins, I felt more sick than I ever had in my life, and I actually tried it three different times. Because I always felt like there was something wrong with me that I couldn't keep eating Atkins, right? Because Atkins is supposed to be really healthy, so there's something wrong that I can't eat bacon all day, right? And and so I kept failing on this diet. Well, Dr. Garth Davis in his book Proteinaholic, he paints this picture so well. He explains that you did not fail this diet. This diet failed you. This diet was not healthy. And he goes through, with all the science, he breaks down why that diet is not healthy, why we're not supposed to eat a carnivorous diet. The human body is not designed to do that long term. We can do it short term as part of survival. It doesn't mean it creates optimal health. Like Dr. Joel Furman says, listen, just because it makes you feel good doesn't mean it's healthy. Cocaine's going to make you feel good. It doesn't mean it's healthy. So this idea of, oh, in the short term, some way of eating, for example, I feel good when I eat salmon or pork or whatever, or I feel good when I eat eggs in the morning. That I feel good doesn't necessarily equate to it's a better health choice for your body. Um,
Absolutely.
Now there's a long term that I actually notice everyone who gets on a whole food plant-based diet, or at least consumes more vegetables, more plants, because some people can transition. I transition slowly. My husband overnight. He woke up one morning, this was just over, it's like almost 2.5 years ago. He woke up and said, I'm never eating meat again. It took me after that, because I had to stop cooking him meat. I slowly transitioned after, and I was consuming all this information, but I slowly transitioned to where I wasn't eating meat 100%. So some people will cut back their meat consumption and cut back their animal products, their eggs and their dairy, and they'll start to feel the shift. And there is a shift. But I've gotten so much information from people saying that a whole food plant-based diet has been life changing for them, has been amazing. They have so much endurance. Like you run marathons now. Tell us about your endurance. Tell us about your amazing physical fitness you've gotten over the last 20 months of eating a whole food plant-based diet.
I'd be happy to, but I will tell you that my claim to fame is I always come in last on a marathon. So there it is. I'm not a fast runner. It's like I've had, when I first started running, I had people say, are you going to win? It's like, oh, hell, if I can cross the finish line without dying, I'm good to go. But I'm not a fast runner, but I'm a persistent runner. And I actually started running the first time I tried, I did power walking, and I had heard a commercial from the Lymphoma Leukemia Society, and I was overweight at the time, and they were saying, do you need to lose weight? Do you like to do good things for the community? Then join us for this run for life or whatever they call it. And I thought, okay, I'm going to. Well, I started doing power walking and was getting in pretty good shape. And of course, doing the crash diet, because that's all I knew at the time. Still eating meat. I was probably doing the bone broth diet, or I was doing the Atkins or whatever I was doing. And what's so interesting is I was going to do the Portland Marathon, and this was when I was 55. And I was on mile 8 of a training day, and something told me that I should stop, but I went against that. My gut was saying, stop, stop, stop. Well, next thing I know, I hit a pothole and I cracked my ankle and literally heard it crack. Oh, it was awful. And turns out, yes, I did break it. Well, I was so frustrated because I had put so much effort into losing the weight. I had put effort into the training. Well, as it turned out, I believe that there's always a higher purpose for what's going on. Right after I broke my ankle, my dad was diagnosed with brain and lung cancer, and within 4 weeks, he passed away. And I really think that it was life slowing me down to literally stop in my tracks to be there as fully as I could be there. And so I stopped for quite a while. And it was when I was 60 that I picked up the sport again. I was doing power walking, and then I got involved with a group of women that would run on Saturdays. And we called ourselves the slow fat girls. We were the slow fat girls because I had gained the weight again. And I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. But I started getting faster and faster and never got to where I was going to win a marathon. But I really enjoyed the sport because I was finding it was very meditative. I was connecting with these women, and we'd get together once a week. And then it was twice a week. Then we were training for marathons. And the first marathon I did was at 61. And again, I finished last, so I'm proud of that. But
the
I
fact
thought,
that
okay,
you finished is amazing. Like finishing a marathon. I don't know if even 10% of our listeners have finished a marathon. Like how many miles is a marathon? 16, 8?
26.2.
26 miles.
26.2. Well, it's so funny because I actually hired a trainer because I wanted to do it the right way. And I think I kind of coaxed her into coaching me, and I said, tell me what you charge, I'll pay you. And she goes, I don't really coach people. I said, but you do marathons, please coach me. So she gave me a price. I gave her a check, and she started coaching me, and she really wasn't into it. Well, the day of the marathon at mile 19, I was dying. I was in such pain, and Karen actually was on her bike next to me going, come on, you got to do it. You got to do it. And my coach came up, and she said, 19 miles is respectable. You could quit. And Karen goes, the hell she will. She goes, if you quit now, you will never forgive yourself. She goes, get off your ass, get up. I don't care if you crawl across the finish line. And it was like, that's what I needed. It's like, oh, I love that woman dearly. Thank you so very much. And of course, I'm, cussing her out and everything. But I crossed the finish line, and she said, you had to finish. She goes, you worked so hard for this. You had to do it. And I did. And so the next year, all I wanted to do was improve my time, and I improved my time by an hour and a half. So then what I do is I do half marathons. I did do a sprint triathlon for my 64th birthday. And for my 66th birthday, I have no idea what I'm going to do because we're under quarantine right now. We have to stay home. So it's like, I don't know that I can actually go do anything, but I go running on a daily basis. I usually get in anywhere from 2 to 5 miles. Today was a little day. Like I mentioned, it was 2.5 miles. And I thought, isn't that pretty amazing? It's like, what I find is since going plant-based, I do go longer distances. I'm not as exhausted, and the recovery time is amazing. And that's where I really noticed an improvement is the inflammation is not there like it used to be. The first marathon I ran, I literally for days I was down. It was like I couldn't move hardly. I was in such pain. Well, now if I go on a 10, 15 mile run, it's like the next day, it's like, okay, let's go do something else. And it's no big deal.
There's a big difference between being a vegetarian or being a vegan and being whole food plant-based. Because some
Yes.
people have reported to me, well, oh yeah, I did that thing. I went vegetarian and I didn't feel healthy, or I still had my inflammation. I still had my brain fog. When I was 16, I decided to go vegetarian for the summer. I was really into studying Reiki, and the person who was going to teach me Reiki said I had to stop eating animals as part of the energetics, because
Hmm.
you're not really, you're better at doing Reiki when you don't eat animals. And so I was just like, okay, I'll do whatever you say. I want to learn this. Well, what did I eat? I went across the street. I worked at a spa as the receptionist and managing the front end of the spa and it was an all natural spa. It was really cool. They had no chemicals. I mean, this is back in the 90s. They had essential oils, and they had Aveda products before Aveda was bought out by the big company that bought it out. I think L'Oreal. But it was all natural skin care and hair care products. Um, and this is in Muskoka in Canada. And so had this great summer job. I just loved it. But what did I do? Every day I walked across the street and I bought a cheese pizza because it's vegetarian, right? So of course I knew I
Right.
was allergic to dairy. I bought a cheese pizza or I bought a vegetarian sub. And that was pretty much, and then I'd come home and make pasta. There was almost no vegetables in my life. There was 100% processed flour and wheat and carbs and dairy, even though I knew I was allergic to dairy. I was I'm a teenager, right? So I'm gonna not make the best choices. And I felt horrible. Within a matter of months, I gained 25 pounds, even though I was physically active, and I just felt exhausted and horrible. And so again, this comes. So I started eating meat, and I stopped eating the processed crap, and I went back to eating meat and vegetables and things like that. And I thought, oh, meat makes me feel good, and vegetarian is bad. So this idea got clicked into my head, and I've met so many other people that say this, that, oh, I tried that and it didn't feel good. Well, we're not, it's like two totally different things. Whole food plant-based is cutting out processed crap food that you may have never in your life lived a 1 week, so a solid 7 days without at least eating some processed food. And doing so, cutting it totally out, is life changing. It makes such a big difference. Like you said, the inflammation goes down. But people become afraid. Well, what am I going to eat? What can I eat? And so I know that you have pointed out a lot of resources. My friend and I created a video training on, it's like a little membership where we filmed ourselves in the kitchen for months. We filmed ourselves cooking, and so we created it's basically like a cooking membership, teaching people how to do that. There's so many resources on YouTube. You could also just search whole food plant-based on YouTube. But Kathleen, I know you also, you have resources. You have a book that you've written. You have
Yes.
your Facebook group, which I love your Facebook group. So there's tons of resources, but this comes back to, you have now entered what you don't know, and you're starting to
Absolutely.
take it in and go, okay, and now I'm realizing that I don't know that there's this whole world of delicious foods that are so healing to my body that I don't even know how great I could feel 1 month from now, if
You know,
given.
yeah, you're bringing up some really good points because there's a huge difference between being vegan and being plant-based. And, it's interesting because in one Facebook group that I belong to, there was a big argument that some vegans were basically attacking plant-based eaters, saying, you eat meat. And I said, no, I actually don't. I'm 100% whole food plant-based. That means elimination of all meat. Now, in theory and really ethically, I am a vegan. I mean, I don't eat any animal products. I'm moving away from, like, when I buy shoes, I make sure it's not leather. I really am looking at all the different aspects of what it means to be vegan. But as far as the eating, it is whole food plant-based, which means as close to nature as possible, a lot of beans, a lot of legumes, a lot of greens, a lot of fruits. And when one of the best books I think for anybody just starting out would be Joel Fuhrman's book Eat to Live, because he really outlines it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the whole discussion of, do you eat oil, do you not eat oil? Well, I actually choose the non-SOS, which is no added sugar, no added salt, no added oil, processed oil.
Mm-hmm.
I eat nuts, I eat avocados. So, and I think that we have to give ourselves permission to make mistakes on it. You know, it's like whatever you consider a mistake, because I have to say that sometimes I do fall victim to my craving for salt. And it's so interesting. It's like anything. For me, if I ever took a drink again, I have no idea where it would take me. And I don't want to find out, because I've had people say, well, don't you think you could have one drink? And it's like, I don't know. And I don't care. I just know that when I did drink, I probably quit dozens of times. Every time that I went back to it, it was worse than the time before. So I'm not willing to mess with fate. And it's the same with the foods that I eat. For me, this is what I need to do for me. And I think that people need to choose what's right for them. And basically what it all boils down to is, what's the quality of life that you want? What's the quality of life that you want to give your children? What's the quality of life that you want to give your relationship? And so it's not really about what's right or wrong. It's really about what is the quality of life that you deserve to have, so that you can have the vibrancy, the focus, the balancing of moods, and just the energy to live fully. Because I got to tell you, there's something really exciting when I go out on a run and I think to myself, I'm a senior citizen. When I got my Medicare, it was like, yeah, that's pretty cool, because it's like, that's not what I thought it would feel like. And I remember when I was on the phone with Social Security doing all the stuff around Medicare, and I was joking with the kid on the phone, and I was telling him, what I did that day for a run and what I eat and all that. He goes, I wish everybody was like you. And it's like, oh, well, I'm trying with my blog, with my Facebook group, with my books, and I'm working on another book that's going to go up on Amazon. And it's going to probably be called Discover the Real Fountain of Youth. But it really is about the quality of life that people want. And what are you willing to do to get that? And I remember when I quit drinking, I had a sponsor who said to me, you have to want to be sober more than you want that drink. It's really that simple. And sometimes we complicate the whole issue of health and vibrancy, and it doesn't have to be that complicated. It's really very, very simple. What are we willing to put into our body to honor our body, to give us the life that we deserve?
So beautiful. So you're 66 now?
Well, next month in May, I'll be
okay,
66.
So you're 65, yes. You're turning 66, and you can just get up in the morning and you can run a few miles, and like it doesn't hurt you to run a few miles. It makes you feel great.
I love it.
And that's something that so many people in their 60s can't do right now, that they don't have the health even to just get up and run 3 to 5 miles. There's people who are younger than you who can't run 3 to 5 miles a day and feel healthy. So now you started running before you went plant-based. So
I did.
Tell me, how soon did you notice a difference in your running after going whole food plant-based?
Within days. It was so incredible how quickly I noticed that the inflammation left. And that was initially why I started a plant-based diet. I had inflammation in my right hand. And as a writer, that was really limiting me. And then I noticed it in my recovery time. So almost immediately. And what's really interesting with the whole issue of health, if you look at the people that are being most compromised by the COVID situation, the ones who are at highest risk are the ones who have diabetes, heart disease. They have high blood pressure, the obesity issue. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why people are dealing with complications, and so much of it has to do with their nutrition. And so for me, the change was so rapid, and it was almost unbelievable. I was like, could it really have happened that quickly? And I just steadily noticed improvements. And so, like I sometimes look at myself now and I go, wow, this is like, I'll look at like my bone structure and the toneness of my body. I didn't expect that kind of a result. And it seems like I'm getting healthier and healthier every single day.
Mm-hmm. It would be cool to do bone scans like every year and see
I've
it.
had it done. I've had it done as part of, like, when you get to 65, they do it automatically. And my doctor said your bone scan is great. It's like I have very, very good bone structure and what is it?
The density.
Um, density. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Well, and I've heard that people on a whole food plant-based diet can reverse osteopenia and osteoporosis, especially because you've got the vitamins and the minerals. It's so dense in like the vitamin K, and there's a lot more that goes into building bones than just taking a calcium supplement.
Right.
We need the vitamin K and we need the microbiome and we need to do the physical exercise like running is a fantastic or walking any kind of where there's an impact um, on the a resistance an impact going back to the bones, stimulating the bones. So what you're doing sounds like a formula for the fountain of youth. I love it. Um, Tell
Well, and
us.
I do resistance training too. And right
Hmm.
now I don't have the availability of the gym. Like I was going
Right.
to the gym probably 4 days a week and I was running 4 or 5 days a week. So, and here's the thing that I really noticed that kind of blew me away, Ashley, is that when the gyms were open, I would go to the gym in the morning and then I'd run in the afternoon because I had so much energy. And the first time I did it, it was like, oh, that was pretty cool. Well, then I did it again and I'm like, this is bizarre. It's like I have so much energy that I had a great day in my office and now I'm out doing a run after I worked out for an hour this morning. That's bizarre.
Mm. What did you notice? Have you always been able to fall asleep easy at night and wake up and jump out of bed in the morning? Um, or did that change when you went plant-based?
Well, it's interesting because I have really bizarre sleep patterns and I fall asleep instantly. Like that's something that I do. My head hits the pillow, I'm out. But I tend to get up really early. Like I got up at 4 o'clock this morning and that's just the way my body is. It's like I like to get up early because I have that quiet time in the morning where I meditate, I do yoga, I watch some inspirational video. Usually it's from Eckhart Tolle or could be Wayne Dyer, Greg Braden, but I like to fill my mind and my body with healthy things. But when I first went plant-based, I was sleeping a lot deeper. But with a lot of what's going on right now, energetically, I just feel like I've been picking up a lot. So I get up and I don't
Mm.
stress over it because a lot of people say, well, aren't you worried about that? It's like, no, I'm not. I do something productive with that time. And by productive, it's not necessarily working, but it's doing something internal that gets me centered and balanced.
Stressing about it and worrying about it is not going to change it. And that's,
No,
we
not at
have to
all.
focus on, I mean, I'm not saying become an ostrich and like, bury your head in the sand. Again, distraction is destructive and following your passions is constructive. But at the same time, focusing on all the things to worry about is not going to change them. Focusing on what you have control over is going to change your life, right? I can never affect politics by worrying about them. I can never affect the planet by worrying about it, but I can follow my passion and focus on what I can control right now. I can control what I eat. I can control the food that comes into my house and how I nourish my family. I can control how I move my body I can go for a walk, I can go garden outside, I can do things in the house, I can read a book. So I can control that. I can do the podcast, I can get on social media and connect with other people. Um, I can help people from my home and I can connect with them.
Right.
But worrying about it is not going to help it. So I teach actually this whole course on how to eliminate anxiety since 2005 because I'm a master practitioner and trainer of neurolinguistic programming. I teach people how to eliminate anxiety because there's a mechanism in the brain that turns anxiety on and you could turn it off. And what I say to people when I'm teaching this, I say, we often think we're preparing, but we're actually not preparing, we're lamenting. So I live in a zone where there's a high probability that one day we'll have a major earthquake just outside of Seattle. And for years, the media loves to fearmonger. When's the big earthquake? It's going to be 9.0. We're all going to die. The whole Pacific Northwest is going to fall into the ocean, right? Like they love saying these things and getting people all ramped up. Are you if you have anxiety around it, you're actually not preparing, you're lamenting. But some people go, oh well, I have to prepare. Listen, preparing is going down the list of well, what should I have? I should have a family plan. Okay, we've covered the family plan. I should have emergency supplies, know how to turn off the gas in the house, know how to just know the basics of first aid, just all the things you should know to best prepare for any emergency. And then you stop thinking about it. You turn it off and you move on with your life. But we don't. We lament. We stay up at night worrying about and imagining these worst case scenarios, which is sending signals to the body that we're under threat. And that's turning on the stress response and creating anxiety. And that's actually causing physical harm to the body and weakening the immune system. So when we focus on things we're afraid of, because everyone's sitting there going, what if I get COVID? What if my grandma gets COVID? What if oh my gosh, what if? What if?
What if? Yeah. Well, Dr. Greger actually wrote a book years ago, How to Not Die from a Pandemic. And when he first wrote it, they said, you're crazy. It's not. And he had the dozen, the healthy dozen, whatever he calls it. He said he had the dozen steps of how to prepare for a pandemic: rubber gloves, masks, sanitizer, and on and on. And he said back then, nobody wanted to publish the book, read the book, and now they're coming to him and saying, what do we do? But, it's interesting because I was certified in NLP in 1994. Susie Smith and Tim Holborn were my instructors in Salt Lake City. And today when I was running, I was kind of tapping into, I was like, okay, going in my mind, I was like, okay, what's my strategy for running long? What's my strategy for enjoying running? And I was just going through this process of how do I most enjoy this? And I think that when we can find the strategy for feeling good, we can model that and we can replicate it. Now, one of the quickest ways to ruin our day is switch between CNN and Fox News. It's like equal opportunity. Watch both of them. And the other day, Karen said to me, what are the numbers today? I said, I haven't got a clue. I said, I've been busy watching Eckhart Tolle. I said, I don't want to know because I already know we have the situation. And I also know that there's a really good chance I'm not going to be impacted by the disease directly because I eat healthy. And if I get it, I'm not going to run into the complications most likely. And Dr. Joel Furman talks about that. He says, I'm not worried about the epidemic. He goes, the pandemic is not going to hurt me because I eat so healthy. But we still have to respect the boundaries of other people, like the people that we could impact. And so I do respect the physical distancing. I do respect wearing the masks now when I go out in public. I do respect the fact that I wash my hands a lot. There are certain things that I do that it's out of respect for other people. It's not because I'm afraid of getting the disease. And you're right. We could sit there and just really mess with our head by saying, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? And instead of saying, what if the bad happens? Well, what if the good happens? What if I can come up with a new idea in my business that turns my business around like never before? Those are the what ifs that we should be focusing on.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. Notice the areas. It's sort of like you have a boat with leaks in it. Notice the areas where the leaks are, and the leaks are places in your life where fear-mongering, anxiety are leaking into your life, where things that are disempowering. It might be relationships. It might be the news outlets, right? It might be your own obsessive thoughts. We can switch our thoughts. It does take practice. but catching it and becoming aware is the first step. Like the first step to recovering from alcohol is admitting that you have a problem, admitting you're alcoholic, and becoming aware of it. The
Right.
first step to cleaning up your life, to going from avoidance and distraction, which is destructive, into focusing on building a life you love, full of your passions, is finding the areas. And maybe we should journal this, write it down. Where are the leaks in my life that are leaking fear into my life, that are triggering fear and anxiety into my life? And what can I do to follow my passions instead of the distractions? I'm I feel so deeply for those who are suffering in this time, and I know that people are suffering. I know that people have lost jobs. They're in economic despair. I have one friend about a month ago went into quarantine. He said, "I have $35
Mm,
to my
mm,
name, and I don't know how I'm going to eat." Like, so there are people in despair, and I feel for them.
true.
Absolutely. And I want for everyone to get out of this better, regardless of where you are. I want everyone to come out of this empowered and an even better person. So, regardless of where we are, we have the ability to, like you said, we can go internally. We have the ability to build ourselves up, and whether it's making the different food choices, whether it's taking in different information, turning some information off and taking in good information, like follow Kathleen's Facebook group. I love it. We're of course going to have all the links to everything that Kathleen Gage does in the show notes of today's podcast, including her Facebook group. So following outlets like this podcast, and like you said, you mentioned some great inspirational people that we can follow that, and fill yourself up with the richness of personal growth and development, and find the cracks in your life that bring in misery, that bring in anxiety, and fill those cracks so they don't bring that in anymore. I have been really enjoying my time in quarantine, and I know that sounds weird because I also very dearly miss going out. I miss the freedom, and I'm really looking forward to this being over. But I have been thoroughly enjoying, and I'm an extrovert, so keeping me at home is not fun. But I've been enjoying it because in times of restriction increases creativity if you let it. If you choose to have it, restriction increases creativity. I was just talking about this in a different interview, that Dr. Seuss wrote his number one best-selling book. I think it's like the number one best-selling children's book, Green Eggs and Ham, because he was given the restriction. It was a challenge that he was given by his publisher to take the 50 most common sight words and only write an entire book using the 50 most common sight words. And he did it. He wrote a creative book. You don't feel like he was restricted at all, but he sat there in that restriction, and it made him more creative. And so we're squeezed in a vice, and hopefully we'll come out as diamonds. We're squeezed under the pressure of this current situation. And I hope that we can take these restrictions and find the ability to become even more creative and resourceful and grow. And this is a perfect opportunity to change our diets. We're not eating out at restaurants. I mean, I guess you could go out and get takeout and bring it home, but you could also go to the grocery store, fill your cart with plants, and come home and learn how to cook a whole food plant-based diet, and take the next few weeks to nourish your body. Regardless of what your family members choose to do, you could choose to be the example. That's like my friend Naomi. She chose to go whole food plant-based, and then her family started following suit, but she didn't force it upon them. She just said, "I'm eating this way. I'm doing the cooking in the house. You guys, if you're going to eat meat, you can choose to do your own cooking or go elsewhere, but this is how I'm eating." And they really enjoyed it. And if they didn't like it, they could go to the fridge and get something else, because she was eating for her health. So, healthy boundaries and using food as our medicine, and also choosing this time to do more personal growth and development, that we can build ourselves up and become even better people when we leave this quarantine. We could become even better people. and I know listeners are going to be listening to this episode even years from now, and this will be like a historic event. At any point in your life, you can choose to turn it around and make the life you've already had, make your past mean something, make the suffering you've had mean something. Like Kathleen, you took those years where you suffered as an alcoholic and you turned it around and you made that suffering mean something, and you learned from it, and you've now helped thousands of people to build a life they love because you teach them how to become better entrepreneurs, how to become heart-centered businessmen and women, and you've been doing that for many years. I definitely want to talk about. So I definitely want to talk about your program for those who are interested in learning how to gain clients through marketing themselves through a podcast, because I think that's very relevant. Obviously, we're on a podcast, so it's very relevant. I want to talk
Very
about that.
relevant.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Well,
So,
I'd love to talk, if I may, about the quarantine
yeah.
and what a blessing that is, because I think of people like Anne Frank, that she and her family were
Mm.
confined to an attic, and out of that came a masterpiece book. I mean, she just like incredible, because she had no choice. And then Man's Search for Meaning, a prisoner in Auschwitz, that out of that experience, he has impacted millions of people with a book. And a lot of people are looking at this as such a restriction instead of saying, how can I grow from this? And I have to say, I agree with you that this whole quarantine and being restricted, if you call it restriction, is, to me, it's a blessing. It's like I'm finding things to do that, like, even little projects around the house. I encourage people to look at one little project, even cleaning a drawer out and doing it, and then having a sense of completion. Because if you just sit and you worry about the fact that you can't do anything, you're doing that to yourself. It's not being done to you. And I also really want to acknowledge the healthcare workers, the people on the front line that they're the heroes. They're the real heroes. And a friend of mine posted the other day on Facebook and said, the people I want to see on the red carpet are the nurses and doctors. I don't want to see the movie stars anymore. I want to see the real heroes. And I agree with that, because they're there answering a call. And so I really want to acknowledge that. And I want to acknowledge the people that right now, like your friend who had $35 to his name. That's a tough place to be in. And that's where we get to ask for help. That's where we get to extend the help and offer helping other people. There might be elderly people in your area that, for the people listening, maybe somebody who you don't know needs a helping hand. Go visit your neighbors when we can, and just see if there's anything that they need. There's plenty of groups on social media where you can reach out to people in your immediate area and say, does anybody need groceries? I have an elderly couple I've been communicating with, and so far they haven't asked for any help, but I've extended the help. I have no idea who they are, never met them other than on social media. And the woman initially was telling me so much stuff that was too personal. She was telling me where they lived, that her husband just had a hip replacement, and on and on and on. I said, okay, I need to stop you. I really want to give you some advice that I think is going to help you. Don't give so much information away to a stranger. I said, I'm a nice person. I'm not going to bring you harm, but you never know. There are scammers out there. So I feel called to protect you in this. And I said, we'll keep in touch with each other. If you ever need me to run to the store for you, I'm here for you. I'll be happy to do it. And she goes, well, how will I compensate you? And I said, what do you mean? She goes, well, how will I pay you for your time? I said, you won't. I said, that's my gift to you. And so I think there's plenty of things that we can do. One is, if we need help, to ask for the help. And if we have the ability to help somebody else, go buy groceries for somebody, because they may really need your help. And this is a time for us to all step up to the plate. But as far as like in business, the big thing that I'm focusing on right now is either teaching people how to go out and find podcast opportunities where they can share their message. And I teach them, how do you find the right podcast? How do you reach out to a host? How do you prepare your marketing materials so that when they say, oh, I need your bio, I need your introduction, I need your headshot, you have all of that ready. And how to get over the fear of the microphone, because what always amazes me, Ashley, are the people who have a great message, but they get in their own way. And they're so afraid of making a mistake that they never make an attempt to reach out to a host. I have one client, love her dearly. She is amazing. She had a stroke 6 years ago, wrote a book about it. It's called Stroke Forward. And she actually hired me to teach her how to get on podcast shows. And I remember the first show that she got on, she goes, well, what if I make mistakes? I said, you probably will. And that's okay, because it just shows that you're human. And she was so concerned about that first show. She did it. She called me up. She goes, that was so much fun. I want to do it again. In a matter of 2 to 3 months, she was on 25 shows.
Love it.
Because she would do, I gave her a strategy. I said, here's what you do. Here's how you reach out to the host. Here's how you find the shows. We went through the whole process of finding shows on iTunes, on Blog Talk Radio, all sorts of opportunities. And she started reaching out, and I said, don't worry if you don't hear back from people. Just reach out again, because they may not have heard, they may not have gotten your first message. And now she can't get enough of it. And one day I was talking to her, and she goes, I'm so disappointed. I don't have anything booked for this week. And I said, well, then get off your rear end and start reaching out. And she did, and she got 2 shows booked. And it was like, she did exactly what I asked her to do, where I've had other people that I give them the strategy, and they go months and months and months without doing anything but research and fine tuning. And, like I had one person that they kept fine tuning their one sheet, and it's like, okay, enough already. Your one sheet is good. Go out and take a risk of being told no. And what people find is that once they get over the fear of the microphone, that all they have to do is be themselves. Like this conversation that we've had, it's been a delightful conversation. And I'm not trying to be perfect, because I can't be perfect. I can only be me. And I bring my experience to the call. And so that's what I encourage people to do when they're looking for shows. And then for those who want to start a show, it's like, let's really look at the time involved, what it takes to find the right platform. Are you going to do video? Are you going to do audio? Do you have the time? Are you disciplined enough? Do you need to bring in a support person? So what needs to happen in order for you to start a show? But if you've got an important message, you owe it to the market to put your message out there. And there's so many amazing people that I work with. I work with a lot of people that are into health and fitness, into spiritual topics. I work with one woman who wrote a book called The Food Codes, and it's all about intuitive eating. And I so love working with people who are really clear on the fact that what they have to say is going to make a difference in people's lives.
I love it. Yeah, I know. I like I said, I've been following you. I've been learning from you, and I've seen. I was actually in one of your webinars, I think about a year ago, or just under a year ago, because you had just gone plant-based, and you were teaching about how to get on people's podcasts. And that's what when people ask me advice, should they start a podcast? And I say, I mean, there's so much work that goes into a podcast. And then once you have momentum, it's a little easier, but there's so much work that goes into it. And then to build up an audience there's a ton of work. And if you have a message, I think it's even better to just get on other people's podcasts, because you're leveraging
Absolutely.
their audience, and you're bringing value, you're leveraging their audience. So it's a little bit, it's like, it's a little bit of a harder road if you launch your own podcast. When I set out to do the Learn True Health podcast, I told myself that I wouldn't quit until I had published 800. And I'm not saying I'm going to quit. I'm just saying that
Don't quit.
I'm not quitting. I'm not quitting. But I said to myself, I'm not even going to entertain the thought of stopping until I have 800 episodes. And of course, if I had gotten into this and no one was listening, I had no listeners, I'd have to reevaluate. But for me, I know that podcasting is not a short term, like a short term thing. It's like growing a garden. It's a long term, and you invest a ton of time into it, and you invest years into it to grow the podcast and to grow a community. And so it's something that takes time. Whereas you can get out there, and tomorrow, if you have a message, if you're a health coach and you have a message and you want to increase maybe you have written a book, or maybe you have a blog, or you have a membership, or you want to take on more clients, you can get out tomorrow and be on someone's show and you're leveraging their audience, you're creating value because you're teaching, you're bringing information to their audience, and you potentially will get followers and clients. And you keep doing it over and over again, rinse and repeat. You're going to eventually build up your own audience and then launch a podcast. So Kathleen teaches that, and
Yes.
and we're going to have actually your whole course on how to do that is we made the link really easy, learntruehealth.com/power up. That's learntruehealth.com/power up. And of course, all the links will be in the show notes of today's podcast at learntruehealth.com. Now, you have this wonderful program for that. And then you also have this separate thing, although you said they're merging together because I love that your passion for helping people is always heart-centered, that you are that you're ethically focused on helping entrepreneurs who are ethical, who are heart-focused. And so, because sometimes when people hear the word entrepreneur or profits, they think of this cutthroat industry where we're going to do whatever we can to get money out of people. And it's like, it's very unethical and very shady. That's sort of the Hollywood version of it. But really, the type of people that you work with and that you coach are the wonderful, beautiful people who genuinely want to help their followers and help their clients. And so that's why I love that you're moving towards merging how you teach also around the plant-based world. So tell us what that's going to look like for the rest of 2020 and moving into years to come. What does this look like?
That's a hard one to answer, especially in light of the fact that I am a professional speaker. So a lot of how I've built my business is going out into a community and being on the platform. Well, that's on hold right now. So it's really looking at all the online resources available. But it's going to be the coaching, the consulting, and for people who maybe want to start a business, I can consult with them. And the whole issue of the money side of it, the more money that you make, the more good you can do in the world. I mean, we do a lot of animal rescue. Our business has supported many, many animals as a result of, they show up on our property, as we were talking about before we started this conversation. But I'm working on a book right now. And so really, it's a lot of what I've been doing in my business for 26 years that's just kind of being married over into the plant-based world. But one of the things I really wanted to point out for people that are looking for opportunities, and I'm in 100% agreement with you that it's a good idea to start by getting on other people's shows, and start with shows that are smaller shows and that they're really in need of an expert like you, and make sure that it's a match. For example, on my plant-based show, if somebody is not 100% whole food, plant-based, they don't come on my show. That's what the platform is about. I really want people from all walks of life that they subscribe to a plant-based lifestyle. And maybe they're a business owner, maybe they're a mom that's raising kids that are plant-based, whatever it may be. And I had somebody contact me the other day and they tried to make it fit. I said, "Are you 100% plant-based?" They said, "No, but." And I said, "Oh, no, there's no buts. It's like, I don't want you on my show. It's not that I don't think you're a good person. I just don't want you on my show." And then I had a woman that contacted me and she said, "I listened to some of your episodes. I went to your website. This is what I do. I'm 100% plant-based. I'd love to talk about being on your show." And I said, "Okay, everything I've read so far," I went to her website. I looked at it, wrote her back. I said, "You're on." That's all it took, was for her to be a good match. So when you look for opportunities, make sure that it is a match for what your message is. And there's plenty of opportunity. I think there's like 1 million podcast shows now. But what you want to also do is look and make sure that they have current episodes. And there's things that I teach my clients how to find out of somebody's current, because if somebody hasn't had an episode for 2 or 3 years, reaching out to them probably is not going to be the thing that's going to get them to say, "Oh gosh, now I need to have my show again." But if they once a week, once a month, but it's consistent, then reach out to them, but don't expect them to say yes right away. And I had this happen recently where 2 people reached out to me. I never got their messages. And I'm so grateful that they reached out again, both of them, like on the same day. This was really bizarre. And individually, they said, "Oh, I reached out to you and I haven't heard back, and I'm just wondering, would I be a good fit for your show?" It's like, "Oh, thank Thank goodness you reached out again, because a lot of times people will reach out, they don't get an immediate yes, and they figure, oh, they don't want to interview me. It may have nothing to do with that. Right now, people are in a lot of confusion. People's businesses may be struggling and they're trying to figure it out. So work with them and bring value to the experience. It's not about them serving you, it's about you serving their market.
I love it. Yeah, I definitely don't bother contacting a podcast that doesn't have a new episode that's been, at least
Right,
two
right.
months. I mean, if I don't publish three a week, I feel guilty. I try to do three a week, but it's between one and two a week most of the time. Sometimes I get three episodes a week. So if someone hasn't published one in months, they're probably not a full-time podcaster and have moved on.
Right.
Also, I almost never reply to the first email. I get solicited to dozens and dozens of emails every day, solicited to be on the show, and I almost never reply to the first one. I'm busy, and then I see that they've kind of written me every day. Hey, just want to make sure you got
Right,
my
right.
email. I finally click through, and then I'll write them back and let them know whether I want them on the show or not. People are welcome to ask. It's just that you've got to be persistent, because there's some people that will write me 5 times, and then I'll go, oh my gosh, thank you for writing the fifth time. I just saw your email pop up, and I missed the other ones because I get so many of them.
Oh
And
yeah, and we get busy. And another thing is, if you're an author, be willing to send a copy of your book to the host. And
yes.
just ask them, may I send you a copy of my book? How would you like it? Would you like the physical copy or the PDF? And,
Mm-hmm.
and I had one client that wanted to charge host for her book. And I said, if you do that, you will never get on a show. Why in the world would you charge somebody for your book? And so, it's like, no, 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 no. You got to learn that this is all part of your visibility strategy. But really, it is about just bringing as much value, and it's not going on and overtly selling stuff. Like I've had some people that want to go on and, well, I'm going to promote my book the whole time. It's like, well, that's a mistake. You want to create value, and if you create enough value, people will want to get your book. Now, I think you asked me a question, and I completely sidestepped the question. I don't even remember what it was, but I'll blame it on age.
No. I tend to have this. I tend to throw three different questions at someone because I get so excited, and I'm like, well, what about this? And what about this? So, and then, I let the guests kind of pick and choose what they wanted to answer. And then it's a casual conversation, and we go back and forth. It's all good. I want to just take your brain and empty it out for all of us to just learn from you, just empty your whole brain out to us.
Oh, well.
I did want to know more about what you're doing in the plant-based world, and what it's going to look like,
Oh,
merging your passion around plant-based eating. Now you take on clients as a health coach, because you have your certification through eCornell, and you've been a coach with many hats for many years. Like you said, in the 90s you became certified in NLP. You've coached people from an entrepreneurial standpoint, from a personal growth and development standpoint, and now from a health and wellness standpoint. But that
well, you
seems
know,
it's been
yeah.
separate from your business, and now it's kind of they're coming together. So, what does it look like teaching people how to uh, market themselves on podcasts, or launch your own podcast, how to market yourself, and then also the plant-based world? Now, you told us about your wonderful podcast, which is really cool. So that's a great resource. And then your Facebook group. But what does it look like moving forward to merge those two together?
Well, it's kind of interesting because what I'm noticing, it's like I don't really call myself a health coach per se. Like I'm not going to, sit there and create menus for somebody. That's not my passion. My passion is helping them to live fully in whatever expression that happens to take form in. And what I'm noticing is many of the clients that before I really started focusing on plant-based eating, they were meat eaters and now they're plant-based eaters, and they said, I've been following your advice. And I'm like, oh really? Okay. So we have an even deeper connection. But what's just so exciting is that as I train somebody how to find podcast opportunities, I use my plant-based podcast show as an example. So I'm able to integrate it in saying, okay, I've got this plant-based podcast show that I started probably on that one 2 months ago. And I started my Power Up show in 2014. I did about 125 episodes in about 8 months, burned myself out. I pod faded for about 5 years, started it up again, pod faded again, and then about probably 6 months ago, then I got serious about it again because I love that platform for business topics per se. But then with my plant-based show, I'm using that as the example of how to grow a podcast show. And that one's growing very quickly. I've gotten some nice position on iTunes. I'm getting some amazing guests. I'm going to be interviewing Dr. Pamela Popper, who is very controversial in the plant-based movement, and especially now with COVID-19. And I'm just getting some incredible people on there. I want to have you on, Ashley, for sure.
I love that.
But absolutely. But it's like, so what I'm doing is I'm actually growing that show and I'm growing that market, and I'm just through organic means, I'm merging that over into the entrepreneurial world, and entrepreneurs are grabbing hold of it and saying, well, maybe I should try this plant-based eating. So without forcing it, they're becoming plant-based. But as far as being a coach for people going plant-based, that's not really my passion. My passion is entrepreneurs who have a big message that want to take it out into the world, but I want them to be aligned with their message. If they say that they love animals, let's really see how true that is.
Awesome. Very cool. So
yeah,
this is where, when we follow our ethics, when we follow our heart, and when we have our business be in alignment with our values, it allows us to become niche down, and then
right.
you can attract the right clientele, that you'll have a more meaningful and rich relationship with your clientele because you niche down and you're serving them in a way that aligns with their values as well. So if someone is Christian or Catholic and they're really, really passionate about that, then incorporate that into your business and serve your community. If you're in the LGBTQ community, serve that community. Like it's find your community, for me, the whole food plant-based, I'm very passionate about it. It's okay to niche down and serve that community, and also educate people. And we have to bring tolerance and love, because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding with there's people who have been raised to believe that we need to kill animals to eat them and
Right.
survive, and that's the best thing for humans. And I've met some people who were vegetarian, and then they became sick and they started eating meat, and then they became better. So then they associate meat with health. And I don't want to bring any shame or any guilt. There's some people who are just not ready, and they get turned
Right.
off by this message. I've had people write me emails that say that they don't want to listen to the shows that have plant-based messages. And I've equally been sent emails by listeners who say that they won't listen to shows that talk about meat. So I can't win. I can't please everyone. But what I can do is ask that we have an open mind, and that if you just, my biggest homework is eat more plants. Maybe you're not ready to try going 100% meatless and going 100% whole food plant-based. Eat more plants. Eat more plants, eat more plants, eat more
Absolutely.
plants. Crowd out your plate. I learned this from the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, the founder of it. He talks about how, as a health coach, we're not telling people, don't eat this, don't eat this, don't eat this, don't eat this. And all of a sudden it's like, well, what can I eat? We tell them what to eat, a lot of, right? Eat a variety of colors of vegetables, crowd out your plate. And if you fill up on, and I learned this from Chef AJ, eat a pound of vegetables before you have the rest of the meal. That's about 2.5 cups of broccoli, which is not that much. I mean, it might, maybe for people who never eat vegetables, but eat a pound of vegetables at breakfast. The first thing she eats in the morning, she steams some vegetables, which is very quick. It's very quick to steam vegetables. and she eats a pound of it. And you could drizzle some kind of delicious balsamic over it, fig balsamic or maple balsamic. There's all kind of delicious balsamics that taste like candy. So you basically feel like you're eating candy. It's like you feel like you're cheating. But you eat a pound of vegetables and then eat the rest of your meal. And if you do that before each meal, or you can also do it in a form of a salad or raw if you wanted to, but eating a pound of vegetables and then eat your potato or your brown rice or your beans. If you're choosing to eat the meat last. Fill up on your plants first, and you'll notice that maybe you're not going to eat a 12-ounce steak. Maybe you're only going to eat a 4-ounce steak. I'm just using that as an example that you'll feel full. And then try some meals with no meat, like meatless Mondays, or no meat till 6 p.m. is another one. I have a woman who joined when we launched the Learn True Health Home Kitchen. She said to me right off the bat, I will never, and I've known her actually, she's been a Facebook friend. We met through a different nutrition community, and she became a listener of the show since episode 1. And she said, I will never, because we talk very candidly to each other. She goes, I'll never go meatless. This is like, I live in the heart of America where we're meat and potatoes. That's all we eat. And I can't ever see my family going meatless, but I'm going to join your membership because I want to learn how to eat more plants. And I said, great, that's fantastic. You don't have to go meatless, but it's sort of like the gateway to going whole food plant-based could be just like eating more vegetables, right? And then noticing you actually like them. And so in the first module of my course, I talk about try the Meatless Monday. Try one meal without meat. Because before doing this, I had never in my life eaten a meal without meat. It was amazing. It was like it took a huge mindset shift to choose to eat a meal without meat, because I actually in my mind didn't think you had a meal until there was meat.
Right.
And so having a meal without meat was the most foreign thing to my body and most foreign thing to my thinking. And so I'm just like, try one meal that's plants only. And it might be like the most foreign thing to you, but just try it. Or try Meatless Mondays where your whole family tries it as a fun experiment. Or try eat no meat till 6 p.m. So your breakfast and lunch is a bunch of plants. And so what she did was she filled up her fridge with vegetables, and she started watching all the videos that we teach how to cook these different foods. And she started doing it with her family, and she decided to do them no meat till 6. So because she's like, listen, we're not going meatless, but we're just going to eat more plants. I said, great. 5 days into it, she wrote a testimonial. It's in our Facebook group, but she wrote it, and I read it in one of our episodes. And she said, I'm 5 days in, and my chronic headaches are gone. She goes, I took Advil almost every day. My chronic headaches are gone. And this is a woman who takes supplements and has eaten healthy for years because she reversed a major, major health condition with food, with, eating less junk food and taking supplements. She goes, my chronic headaches are gone. I have more energy. I actually have significantly reduced my coffee intake, and I still have more energy. She has 3 young kids in diapers. So
Wow.
And she goes, I'm actually falling asleep at night. Because she's a night owl, and she's on the East Coast, and at midnight she'd be messaging me, so I noticed she like never gets sleep. She goes, I'm actually feeling sleepy at night. I have energy during the day. She goes, my kids are eating vegetables they've never eaten before and liking it. And this was 5 days in to just choosing to do this one experiment where she was no meat for breakfast and lunch and eating more plants.
You just reminded me of one of the other things that changed. I used to get really severe headaches, and it was on the side of my head. And I was in the dentist chair about a year into eating plant-based, and I had to open my mouth because he was doing, I think, a bridge work or whatever he was doing. And so for like 2 hours, my mouth was open, and I got this headache, and all of a sudden it hit me. I have not had a headache in over a year. And it was something that I had grown accustomed to, was having the headaches. And then when I switched to plant-based, the headaches disappeared, but I never connected the dots until I was sitting in the dentist chair. So, that's another benefit is, and I love what you say about, just do what's appropriate for you, because again, people will decide based on the quality of life they want. And I know that sometimes with me, people will ask about being plant-based. And when I share what I do and what I don't do, they're like, oh, I could never do that. And I said, well, I'm not asking you to. It's like, you'd ask me what I do, and, I'm just going to share, and you'll do what you want to do, So, but I said, if you like your misery, go ahead and keep it. But there you go. Because they say that in recovery. They say, just try this for 30 days. And if you want to go back to the way you were, we'll give you your misery back. No problem at all.
Oh
So,
my gosh, I
but
love it.
yeah,
I love it.
but for me, I really am passionate about this, and I'm so grateful that I've had the opportunity to share my insights and what it's done for me. Because honestly, the quality of life that I get to experience today, I don't care how long I live. I just care about the quality of life I have. Because when my mom passed away for 2 years, she had a really, really tough time after my dad died, and she was a very unhealthy woman. She had a lot of chronic illnesses. And I saw them literally take her away a piece at a time, her intestines, and she would go in for a surgery. They took another foot and then another foot. And that was her life. And I didn't want to end my life that way. I want to have a quality that really gives me the passion to live fully each and every day, whatever that may mean to me. If it's working in my garden, great. If it's cooking a meal, if it's spending time with family, whatever it may mean, I just want to give it 100%.
And this way of eating and also this lifestyle you've set up, the getting up early and filling your body with inspirational food, with
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
spiritual, with mental, with emotional food, and then going for a run, and also filling your body with plants and unprocessed foods, and avoid of all these chemicals out there. 80,000 chemicals have entered our bodies in the last 50 years, through
Mm.
new chemicals that were man-made chemicals through air, through water, and through our food supply. There are chemicals that are legally allowed to be sprayed on our food and in our food supply. They don't have to disclose it, that are illegal in other countries, like the entire
Mm.
European Union. There's whole batches of chemicals that are put in our food. And this is another one that really hit me. When you buy ice cream, which of course I don't buy ice cream, but when you buy ice cream, I make my ice cream at home. Actually, I make homemade ice cream. I know all the ingredients that go into it. It's absolutely delicious, and nutritious. But the ice cream you buy in the store, when you read the ingredients, it doesn't say anything about food grade antifreeze, because it's industry standard. In the food industry, when you buy a processed food, there's all kinds of chemicals that are in that food that they don't need to disclose. Like if you buy a box of crackers, there's chemicals in your food they do not need to disclose is an ingredient, because it's industry standard. It's used as an emulsifier, or used as some kind of agent, or it's one of the pesticides. It doesn't need to be in the ingredients. So it just because something looks okay, well, these Cheerios look
Wow.
okay. Well, the sure okay. They also are full of glyphosate, which is Roundup, which is it's a chelator that dumps heavy metals into your kidneys and into your brain. I've had Dr. Stephanie Seneff on the show twice. She's a MIT top research scientist who is her background is not in medicine. Her background is research and understanding the numbers, and she's gotten together with a team of MIT and other top PhD research scientists who have brought together all the information around glyphosate, and they can show the damage it does to the body. And of course, this is, Monsanto and, Bayer, who owns
Right.
Monsanto now, fights this. So they try to suppress the information, but these scientists are, they're not making money doing this. She came on my show. She's not making a dime doing it. She's a whistleblower. She's trying to get the information out there. So our food supply is tainted. We can't trust when we buy a packaged food that it's clean. We need to buy organic as much as possible, organic, locally grown. If it's not certified organic, get a local farmer who get a relationship with them and learn that they do organic farming, but they haven't paid the hundreds of thousands of dollars to become organically certified, or they're transitioning over, because I think it's like a 5-year period to transition over into becoming an organic farm. We want to support those guys, those farmers, as much as possible, buying foods that are local, foods that are organic, or foods that at least are void of the pesticides, and have your own garden if you can.
Right.
These, or get together with other people who have gardens, and you grow broccoli, they grow potatoes, and you guys share. There's all kinds of things we can do, and we have to get creative and resourceful. But we can cut out these 80,000 chemicals that are in our environment. We can significantly reduce them, which is going to extend the quality of your life, and it's also going to extend your life itself. I tell this story, and I'll be very brief. I was very sick. I had polycystic ovarian syndrome, type 2 diabetes, chronic adrenal fatigue, chronic infections for which I needed monthly antibiotics for. I was told I was infertile and I'd never have kids. And I was in my 20s. I was a prisoner of my own body, totally sick. And the first health change I made was I went organic. I shopped the perimeter of the store, so we ate less processed food. Not 100. We didn't go 100% free of processed food, but we cut out some processed food, but we ate 100% organic. And after going 100% organic within 1 month, my chronic infections stopped. I stopped needing to take antibiotics. And I turned around and I went, that was the impact on my immune system that the chemicals had, the processed, all of the chemicals that are on all of our food. Just going organic and eating less processed food made my chronic infections stop, made my immune system not so taxed. And that was the beginning of my journey of getting my health back, of reversing all these diseases. And now I don't have those diseases. So, and of course we naturally conceived our child. So we don't have any of those diseases, but that's the impact of just choosing less processed food and going organic.
Absolutely. And it's incredible, that it is a journey, because I remember when I was about 20 or 21 years old, I had endometriosis, and that's before they even had a name for it, because, that's 40 some odd years ago. And they just did test after test after test. And one doctor wanted to do experimental surgery and open me up, like completely open me up. And my ex-husband was like, I think that's the only really good thing he did. He said, absolutely not. He goes, we'll find another doctor. Well, we found a doctor that had just started learning about laparoscomies, I think it's called, where they went in through the navel and they put a microscope inside of me. And he said, you're filled with cysts. And my mother-in-law, she said, do you think it's from the cheese that you're eating? Because he was Hispanic, and so his mom did a lot, and she was from Mexico, did a lot of cooking with cheese. And I said, no, how could it be cheese? And that was before the cheese was even processed the way it is today. And I thought of this probably a month ago about her comment, do you think it could have been the cheese? It could have been the cheese. And back then it was like, oh, absolutely not. It's a journey that we're on. And a lot of times people say, well, I don't want to give up meat because I love the taste of meat. I have to tell you, I love the taste of meat. We would have big meat meals. But when you look at the journey of where you started and where you go to, when you start making these changes, it's incredible. And it is a journey. It's not something that just suddenly everything changes. Now, for some of us, we are very black and white, but it's a journey of discovery. Like I said, I did the bone broth diet. I've done the Atkins diet. I've done the Mediterranean diet. I've done the starvation diet. When liquid protein was a big deal, and this was in my 20s, I literally went 3 months without eating. I did liquid protein for 3 months, ended up in the hospital, almost dead.
Oh my gosh.
They said the potassium was hardly even registering in my body. It was just a really, really critical situation. And that's how dramatic I was in the way that I would try to lose the weight instead of looking at a healthy lifestyle. And that's what I love about the choices that I make today, and being able to bring awareness and shine a light on a healthier way of living. This whole thing with the factory farms, I really see it as a blessing, because if we could get those farmers to go more into organic produce, oh my gosh, what a blessing that would be. So, I think there's a
Mm,
lot of blessings that are going on right now, and we just need to look at it that way.
I love it. You had mentioned earlier you don't consider yourself a health coach because you don't make food plans for people, and I think that there's a health coach. A lot of
It
people don't.
scares
Well,
me. It
no, you
scares me.
this right. I understand that.
I'm a
You know,
sissy when it
it's
comes to
funny.
that.
It's funny. So I'm a health coach, and I have to tell you that majority of health coaching is exactly what you do. Very little health coaching is making a food menu because most people won't follow a food menu. Most people, what they actually need is they need you to point them in the right direction and you could give them a list of some ideas. Here's some recipes that are really great, or what kind of foods do you like? Would you like Mexican? Like, here's some plant-based versions. Most people don't want menus or food plans because it's too regimented and they won't actually follow it long term. You want to teach them to fish instead of give them the fish. And as a health coach, most health coaching is enlightening, is empowering, and is lifting them up and helping them to uncover their passion and helping them to find the resources, so that they can make the best choices for themselves, and also then having an accountability partner. I think you're a health coach based on everything that you
Well, I'll
do.
take it. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
and I think because I didn't want to be boxed in on like that's all I do, because there's so much
Mm.
to and I like to live by example. I like to
Yeah.
show through example what's possible. And like I said, I love to read, and so when I read a good book, I'm always posting about it. And so I like to share these resources, and I'll take it if that's what being a health coach is. I'll take it.
Awesome. I totally get it. We're of the era where we're not fitting, no one's fitting into a box. There's no box anymore.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
We're
Well, now I got to go get new business cards. No, just
Yeah.
kidding.
What is it called? Is it the Renaissance man? What is it when someone is like a master of many hats? They're
Yeah, Renaissance, and would it be Bohemian too?
maybe. Well, we are.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
We're quite bohemian, aren't we?
Yes, absolutely.
It's been such a pleasure having you on the show and exploring your world and how what you do in the entrepreneurial space is also helping people to get their health back. And you're also helping people who work in the health space, like health coaches and doctors
Yes.
who have a message and they want to get their message out there. I know also you've had several clients who teach raw vegan, which is such a niche market. But teaching, you have clients in this space and you help them to get their voice out there so they can get their books sold to more people, so they can get more
Yes.
clients. And I know that about 20% of my listeners are in the holistic health space, that many of my listeners are health coaches, naturopaths, chiropractors, acupuncturists, even nurse practitioners who are also like health coaches in a sense. And so there's many different roles that many different professions that my listeners are in, that, and many of them are in the entrepreneurial space who would love to grow their business. So you teach us how to do that. Listeners can go to learntoyourhealth.com/power up. And of course, the links to everything that Kathleen Gage does is going to be in the show notes of today's podcast at learntoyourhealth.com. It's been such a pleasure having you on the show. I can't wait to be on your show. And
Well, let's get that taken care of. This
that'd be
has been
awesome.
delightful. I've had such a great time. It's just you're doing amazing things, and I know you and Duffy with your son are just making a difference in the world. So I really appreciate all you're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you. Now, I want to make sure everyone knows, what's the name of your podcast?
It is plant-based eating for health.
Awesome. And they could also
Yes.
search Kathleen Gage and probably find you as well,
Oh,
like
a
in
boatload of
iTunes or
stuff.
whatever.
Yeah,
A
yeah,
buttload of
yeah. A
stuff will come
boatload of
up.
stuff. Yeah, yeah. A buttload or a boatload.
Well, right? Whichever you prefer, there's going to be a lot of it. Awesome. Kathleen, do you have any homework you'd like to give us to wrap up today's interview?
Yes, I do. What I would like people to do is actually sit down and describe your ideal life. What would your health be like? What would your family life be like? What would your community be like? And start with your health. And based on that, what choices can you make that will get you closer to that decision? I did a visioning class actually, it was about 2 years ago, and I mapped out the kind of life I wanted to have, and it included so much about plant-based eating, and I didn't even realize it at the time, but I did a vision board. And when I looked at that a few months later, I was like, oh my gosh, everything I put on this board has become a reality, including a new rescue dog. We lost one of our dogs, and I put an image of the kind of dog I wanted, and I had no clue that I even put it on there until I looked later. And we have Roxy now, who just spit an image of what was on that vision board. So I would say, sit down and really convene with yourself and come to a place of honoring who you are meant to be, and then take the action from there.
I love it. Such great advice. Awesome. Thank you so much, Kathleen Gage, for coming on the show. I can't wait to have you back on the show at a later date. Keep coming back and sharing with us. And also, I can't wait to be on your show. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ashley.
I hope you enjoyed today's interview. Please go to these two links today. One is learnyourhealth.com/powerup for the free goodies that Kathleen Gage is giving you. And go to learnyourhealth.com/homekitchen to get the free tour and check out the membership site that I created for you with all these wonderful recipes and healing information. So you can walk into the kitchen and use your kitchen to support your body's ability to heal itself. Delicious recipes that support you and your family in optimal health. learnyourhealth.com/homekitchen. I hope to see you there.